to me, it was disappointing, I'll be honest. I have to be straight. I was disappointed. A lot of people were disappointed.
Donald Trump is no stranger to failures and fuck-ups, but he just suffered something relatively rare, in this day and age at least, for MAGA. A high-profile defeat at the hands of his own party. It was brutally humiliating. He is visibly disappointed, and once Americans learn about what happened, they should be relieved. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play here, but this is Donald Trump announcing on camera that he is withdrawing under bipartisan pressure his controversial disgraced nominee to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. This is huge, and I'll explain why afterwards.
Your nominee for U.S. Attorney of D.C., do you have a backup plan if this Senate does not?
But he's a terrific person, and he wasn't getting the support from people that I thought. You know, he's done a very good job. Crime is down 25% in D.C. During his period of time. I'm very disappointed in that, but I have so many different things that I'm doing now with the trade. You know, I'm one person. I can only make, boom, I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day. But we have somebody else that will be great. I just want to say Ed is unbelievable, and hopefully we can bring him into whether it's DOJ or whatever, in some capacity, because really outstanding. It was, to me, it was disappointing, I'll be honest. I have to be straight. I was disappointed. A lot of people were disappointed, but that's the way it works sometimes, you know, that's the way it works. And he wasn't rejected, but we felt it would be hard. And we have somebody else that we'll be announcing over the next 2 days who's going to be great.
Now, it's entirely possible that this next nominee is even worse, but again, no. Trump is so crushed, you can hear it in his voice, you can see it on his face, and he actually admits it. It's so bad that even Trump is like, yeah, this sucks. I'm disappointed that I couldn't make this happen. What a failure. What a defeat at the hands of his own party. We'll get into all this, but let's break down what happened. So, Trump says he's dropping Ed Martin's nomination amid bipartisan opposition. As a rule, Senate Republicans have rubber-stamped Trump's worst nominees. As Ed Martin helped prove, there are rare exceptions. Since Donald Trump's second inauguration, Trump has sent some truly outlandish nominees to the Senate for confirmation. In a handful of instances, Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, et al., there were a smattering of GOP no votes, but in nearly every instance, the Republican-led institution ended up confirming Trump's choice following the White House's demands. And it's true, so many people are like, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, these guys are so inexperienced, so unqualified, so loony, they will absolutely be rejected. But Donald Trump's cultish grip over the GOP was such that they sailed through. Kash Patel as FBI director, the only one really who had been withdrawn in a high-profile situation before was Matt Gaetz, right? So Trump's grip on the GOP is stronger now than it ever is, or it's ever been before, which makes what happened to Ed Martin refreshingly encouraging and hopefully more common, but we'll see. Ed Martin, however, proved to be a bridge too far. Early on in his second term, Trump appointed Martin as the interim U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., which was immediately recognized as bizarre. Not only did the Missouri Republican have literally no background as a prosecutor, he had all of the wrong qualifications. Martin was a conservative activist who supported the January 6 criminal defendants and was a prominent member of the so-called Stop the Steal movement. After Martin got to work and demonstrated almost cartoonish levels of partisanship, Trump nominated him to serve in the post as a permanent basis. That, of course, meant he'd be needed to be confirmed by the Senate. In the abstract, Trump was probably optimistic. After all, if the GOP senators were willing to go along with some of the worst cabinet nominees in modern history, they were likely to continue to serve as a rubber stamp for a U.S. attorney nominee. That's not what happened. The president announced Thursday afternoon that Martin's nomination is ending and he'll choose a new nominee in the coming days. When Martin's defeat appeared increasingly inevitable, Trump started investing real political capital into his nomination, using his social media platform to talk up Martin's nomination while privately making calls to Capitol Hill, hoping some presidential lobbying would help get Martin across the finish line. That effort clearly failed, adding to his growing list of personnel missteps. What Trump might not have fully appreciated was just how ridiculous Martin's record had become. Indeed, his greatest hits package featured misguided and unnecessary fights with the dean of Georgetown University's law school, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, former President Biden, and Democratic Representatives Robert Garcia of California and Eugene Vindman of Virginia. And that's before one adds Wikipedia and prominent medical journals to his increasingly bizarre list of targets. During his brief tenure, Martin also demoted multiple senior officials involved in the January 6 insurrection cases, compared one of the criminal charges used against January 6 defendants to the internment of Japanese Americans during the Second World War, falsely described himself as one of Trump's lawyers, made dubious denials about his earlier praise for a Nazi sympathizer, made more than 150 appearances on Russian propaganda outlets between August 2016 and April 2024, weighed in on a civil case involving the White House, which literally had nothing to do with his office, intervened in a dubious EPA investigation, made a dubious decision involving Republican Representative Corey Mills of Florida, launched the wildly unnecessary Operation Whirlwind, also launched the wildly unnecessary Project 1512 initiative, also launched a wildly unnecessary election accountability unit, made a creepy public vow to wield his prosecutorial powers against those who get in Elon Musk's way, engaged in brazen conflicts of interest in a January 6 case, which he effectively took both sides of a criminal case, and kicked off a radically unnecessary investigation into Jack Smith and the law firm that gave Jack Smith pro bono legal services. And folks, there are hyperlinks to this. We would be here for 45 minutes trying to blitz through this. But yeah, as U.S. attorney, you're not one of Trump's personal attorneys. You are America's attorney. Just like it would be like the attorney general saying, "Oh, I'm the president's lawyer." No, you're not. You're the president's employee, but you're supposed to be America's lawyer. Rudy Giuliani is Trump's personal lawyer. President Biden had personal attorneys. All presidents do, but they are not supposed to be occupying positions of high office. You're supposed to represent the American people. Take direction from the president broadly, yes, but it's not the same thing. These are meaningful differences. So this guy is unhinged. You should check out his Twitter. It's insane. In a piece for New York Magazine, Ellie Honig recently described Ed Martin as Trump's, quote, dangerous and ridiculous prosecutor. Martin went out of his way to prove his many critics right, and it derailed his nomination. Okay? So that's the context for this. Now, it was likely that Martin was going to be derailed after this happened yesterday. This is Republican Senator Tom Tillis, okay? In my state, North Carolina, he represents my state. And I'm hoping that we can eject him in 2026 when former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper announces his candidacy. Fingers crossed. But this is Tom Tillis basically saying that, in the committee that's responsible for, recommending nominees to go to the floor for a full vote, and Republicans need all hands on deck because the margins are so thin. Tom Tillis said no.
He is, I don't believe he's being advanced to the markup. I met with Mr. Martin. He seems like a good man. Most of my concerns related to January 6th, and he built a compelling case on some of the 1512 prosecutions that were probably heat of the moment bad decisions, but where we probably have a difference is I think anybody that breached the perimeter should have been in prison for some period of time. Whether it's 30 days or 3 years is debatable, but I have no tolerance for anybody who entered the building on January the 6th, and that's probably where most of the friction was.
I see. So he disagreed with you on that?
Well, no, I have to say that Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining how there were people that probably got caught up in it, but they made the stupid decision to come through a building that had been breached and that the police officers and others were saying stay away. So the difference wasn't that they should be charged, in my estimation, it's by how much. That's an argument I'm willing to have, but we have to be very, very clear that what happened on January the 6th was wrong. It wasn't, it was not prompted or created by other people to put those people in trouble. They made a stupid decision and they disgraced the United States by absolutely destroying the Capitol, and I can't have any patience.
It sounds like your concerns were not alleviated.
But let me be very clear, though. Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining the one area that I think he's probably right, that there were some people.
So, again, even Tom Tillis, right, in this rare moment of political backbone, has to massage Ed Martin, has to massage Trump. Oh, he did a good job. Why not just say, no, this dude's insane. Trump is entitled to general deference as the president. He's entitled to general deference from the party. That's how these things typically work, but he's not entitled to absolute deference. He picked a nominee which offends all sensibilities. This guy is nuts. There was no way in hell that he was ever going to make it past the nomination process because he wasn't going to get, like, he can't be honest. So in his dissent, which ultimately pressured Trump to withdraw Martin's nomination, Tom Tillis has to massage things. It's another reason why he's such a coward, even now, and does not deserve to represent North Carolina. So, yeah, this is excellent. This is really good news. Americans should breathe a sigh of relief. But who knows who the hell Trump will proffer as his next nominee. I suppose it could be worse than Ed Martin. But also, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but just to give you some snapshots here. The Washington Post had a really good write-up this morning. What Ed Martin told the Senate about January 6th and what he said before it was updated a few minutes ago, said that Trump said he would replace Ed Martin as his nominee. But here's where it's big. As part of the nomination process, Martin answered in writing and under oath the committee's questions about the January 6th Capitol insurrection. In many of his answers, Martin said he could not recall his original statements and avoided a direct answer in others. Here's how Martin answered, alongside what he said about the Capitol breach the years before his nomination. So, shot chaser moment. Question: have you ever stated or suggested that any part of the January 6th attack on the Capitol was deliberately planned, premeditated, and organized by the FBI? Answer: this question is related to the 1512 project recently started by the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia regarding a Trump investigation into January 6 prosecutors. I cannot comment on anything related to investigatory measures, internal deliberations, or anything else related to the details of an investigation, except it has nothing to do with that. We're talking about your past comments, which predate an investigation. So what are you talking about? So his prior statement on X.com on December 7, 2023, before Trump was elected, before Trump was inaugurated, and therefore before this man was even interim U.S. attorney. So again, total disconnect. He has no excuse. He just loses. It's a bullshit, dishonest claim he made in order to avoid answering the question. This is what he said. What if you hit a cop? I can't condone it, but you're still caught up in what I think is a staged operation. You starting to understand? Question: have you ever stated that you've grown more understanding towards those who beat police officers on January 6th because of the, quote, situation in which those rioters found themselves in? Answer: as an initial matter, I reject violence against law enforcement officials in the strongest of terms. Second, I provided legal services to people charged in the events on January 6th in accordance with their constitutional rights under the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution. With that in mind, I attempted to understand the events of the day and represent those clients to the best of my ability. But what was his initial statement? But the more we find out about how staged and managed this was, the more we have to have less judgment for somebody who hits a cop. Starting to see? Have you ever called for financial reparations to those who to be made to January 6 defendants, including those who committed violent offenses? Answer: I do not recall, and please see my response to question 5A. His response to 5A: I'd express support for a case-by-case evaluation regarding the charges brought in relation to January 6. For example, as the United States Supreme Court found in Fisher v. United States, the obstruction of justice charge brought under 18 U.S.C. Code 1512 had been used too broadly against January 6 defendants. But what was his prior statements? Well, by the way, I'm for reparations. I finally come around to reparations. I believe that everyone that has been targeted on January 6th, they should get a pot of money, like the asbestos money that we got for victims of asbestos, like the other things. They should be able to get access to it. And folks, it goes on like this. He lied repeatedly because he's a radical lying sack of shit. And it's great that his nomination has been withdrawn, because imagine this kind of lunatic with that kind of power. Now, that's not to say that the next Trump nominee won't be as unhinged or as dangerous, perhaps even more so. But right now, we should breathe a sigh of relief that Donald Trump folded to bipartisan pressure, that Republicans were able to stop him in this context from making Ed Martin's nomination confirmed. Trump is visibly upset about this. This is a major defeat at the hands of his own party, and hopefully we will see more of this in the time to come, but I remain skeptical. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.